Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. I want to welcome who's standing with us, Jefferson Parish Sheriff Newell Norman, acting TSA administrator who flew in today, Mel Carraway. Thank you so much for getting here so quickly. Mayor Mike Yenni, of course, you know we're sitting in the city of Kenner. Jefferson Parish John Young, Aviation Director Iftikhar Ahmad, New Orleans Fire Chief Tim McConnell, and TSA Agent Carol Rochelle, who was present last night and who sustained an injury and did an unbelievable job, and we thank you for that. The big picture right now is that the security officials last night, as you know by now, acted quickly. They acted heroically. The airport is safe. The airport is secure. The airport is open. And the airport is fully operational. As you know by now, this was an unexpected attack by a clearly troubled and disturbed individual. The security officials did everything they could to stop the perpetrator. They secured the scene and they saved a lot of lives. Some officials still remain on the scene. In addition to TSA and the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, the New Orleans Fire Department officials who are first responders and are regularly stationed here are here as well. The state police assisted. The investigators have been working throughout the night to make sure that they gathered as much information as possible and to make sure that the airport is fully secure, and they are confident that it is. As new information is gathered, we're going to continue to provide updates to you. I really want to just take a moment to thank all of the first responders. As all of you saw, Sheriff Norman was on scene last night. The JPSO officers, the TSA agents, all of the first responders did a spectacular job, and Newell, thank you so much for quarterbacking that effort for us. I also want to highlight the cooperation between the parishes. Of those of you know, the city of New Orleans runs and operates the airport, but we are in Jefferson Parish, which is immediately adjacent to New Orleans, and we are in the city of Kenner. The only way this facility works is through great inter-parish cooperation, and I believe that you saw that last night. And also, to all of our TSA agents, I brag about them all the time everywhere I go in the country, and last night they showed why we really have one of the best TSA teams in the country, Mr. Acting Administrator. So you can spread the word when you travel around. Obviously, we are going to learn from this incident. Like all major incidences, whether it's a hurricane, catastrophic event, or an event like this, we always review our emergency response practices. We will do the same thing. Because of the way everybody reacted last night, really they saved a lot of lives, and I just can't express how important. And finally, I want to thank the public and the passengers who immediately after this event did not panic. They worked with us, and the airport, as you know, a lot of the flights moved from Concourse B to Concourse C, and everything went about as well as it possibly could go under the most difficult of circumstances. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, Newell Norman, who was here last night, has been working throughout the night with all of the team of the first responders, and then we'll be followed up by the acting administrator, Sheriff Norman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate your comments and all of the comments of all of the participating agencies here. The airport officials were second to none, not any panic, acted in a very deliberate way, made the airport safe and secure, immediately put plans in place to move incoming and outbound flights to a different concourse so that we could shut down and work through our crime scene issues that we had on Concourse B. To Mayor Yenni, I want to thank you as well as the Kenner PD. They showed up en masse. We accomplished a lot of things last night that we would not have been able to accomplish without the Kenner Police assistance, as well as FBI, ATF, and state police, and so many others, and obviously the TSA. So, not unlike other incidents like this around the country, there was a desire on the airport officials and my part to get as much information in the hands of the media as possible in a very short period of time. Based on some original witness statements, there were a few things that were mentioned in the first press conference last night that were actually factually incorrect, and I would like to try and address those first. There was not a member of the traveling public who was actually had a bullet graze wound. That was mistaken. There was a couple of members of the public that had some cuts and bruises, none of which from the perpetrator. And I think that's how that story kind of took off, as they saw folks with bleeding from an arm or something like that, and it kind of took on a life of its own. The TSA agent that we put out, everyone thought that she had gotten hit by the machete. The fact of the matter is that while trying to, she was being chased by the perpetrator with the machete. He was probably within 3 to 4 feet of her as they were running up the exit ramp to the concourse, running towards the officer. The officer began to fire because he was gaining on her very quickly. Fired the first shot, we believe at this point in time, we're not certain, was the one that actually struck the TSA agent in the tricep of her right arm. There were 2 other shots fired by our officer. The perp was actually hit 3 times. So right now, preliminarily, what we believe is that the through-and-through wound on the TSA agent actually struck the perpetrator as well. So those were a couple of things that initially that we had from witness statements. And then there were a couple of other things that we cleared very late last night. When we got an opportunity early on in the evening to see the security video, as I said earlier, he came down one of the lanes, he ducked under one of the ropes, got into the TSA pre-lane, got out of the TSA pre-lane, got into a regular lane, and approached the first TSA agent. He had a bag in his hand, and we didn't know that at first. In fact, all of the witnesses, obviously so, being chased with wasp spray and a machete, never noticed a bag. Once we were able to determine in the security videos that he had a bag, we cordoned that area off, and within probably 12 to 15 or so minutes, we began to smell a gas smell. So we immediately moved all of the passengers that were outside of Concourse B across the terminal building to the other side and cordoned that area off and called for our bomb squad. Almost simultaneously, we found his car. His car was parked on the upper ramp. Once we were able to determine that he was no longer a taxi cab driver, we were looking for a taxi. We began running plates in order to determine any other cars that were abandoned, and we came across his car on the ramp. The bomb squad went into the car, found some smoke bombs that you use at New Year's Eve and 4th of July in the car. We also found 3 tanks in the trunk of the car, an acetylene tank, a Freon tank, and an oxygen tank. And we don't know at this time what the intended purpose of those being in the trunk of the car actually are. We also began, as I said, simultaneously to process the bag, and we noticed that there was a liquid leaking out of the bag. And once the bomb squad cleared the automobile, we then moved to the bag. What the bag revealed was 6 half-pint mason jars with cloth wicks into a liquid that we now know to be gasoline, which you would commonly refer to as a Molotov cocktail. He had a barbecue lighter in the bag. He also had a letter opener, plastic, and there was some crushed powdery material found near his body with green fuses or wicks, which we've determined preliminarily at this point in time to be smoke bombs that had been crushed. Obviously, he has been unconscious. He's still alive. We very much want the opportunity to talk to him. We're not sure that that's actually going to happen. His family has been very cooperative. We have been able to determine that there is a mental illness component here that's been presented. They've been very cooperative. Some of the witnesses that the media have interviewed about his demeanor, we've been able to validate. Very calm, cool, collected, nothing out of the ordinary. No one at this point in time has any notion as to what may have triggered this behavior. And not unlike dealing with the mentally ill, sometimes you will never know what actually triggers some of this type of behavior. So I want to thank his wife and his kids. You know, they've been very cooperative with us. In fact, we made special arrangements for them to go see him at the hospital, which is against our policy. But because of the level of cooperation, the nature of the situation, the family being so forthright and cooperative with us, we all felt it was the right thing to do. He is a Jehovah's Witness, and so there are certain types of medical care that he has refused at this point in time. We're in constant contact with the medical officials at the airport. Lieutenant Sleeve, my officer, is doing well. We never want to have to pull our gun. I have to say, in the face of a fairly large man with a machete and a can of wasp spray running towards you and right on the agent's tail, so to speak, she did an incredible job. She stood her ground. She exhibited deliberate leadership in every way, shape, and form one can think of, and ended up having, unfortunately, to fire 3 shots. You know, when you get involved into situations like this, bad things happen. And good things happen. And unfortunately, he's injured, but fortunately, he didn't seriously hurt anybody. I have to say, in summation, as it relates to all of this, all of the folks at the checkpoint did everything humanly possible that they could do, in my view, to make sure that the traveling public was safe. None of these people are armed with anything, just their hands, that's it. He's wielding a machete this long and spraying folks to disable them with wasp spray in the face so that they don't confront him and they don't get an opportunity to fight or get into a fistic encounter with him. But they stood their ground as much as they could, and in many cases delayed certain things, and I think caused some confusion to where he headed back up this exit lane right into our officer. Had he made it down the concourse, who knows? You know, nobody will ever know. And I'm sure someone's going to ask that question. We just don't know. And we don't know what his intent was because we haven't really been able to debrief this particular subject. So with that, I think we have some other folks that TSA administrator.
Thank you very much. Let me simply add my thanks, Mayor, Sheriff, and Executive Director Iftikhar, Ahmad, and to the board as well. Yesterday was an example of what heroism is really about. I am so proud of Carol and the workforce that we have here at this airport. It's an example of what focus to mission is really about, to secure the traveling public. Even immediately after this incident occurred, members of TSA and the workforce were back on duty doing their responsibility of securing the traveling public. That's focus to duty. It's because of the training with the members and the partnership here at this airport that a lot of folks' lives were saved. They practice monthly about evacuation drills, and that was very helpful. Carol made it very clear about what needed to occur at the checkpoint. It was that bravery, which leads me to the third point of leadership. That's really what it really comes down to. Both from the law enforcement perspective, what Officer Sleeve did was just instinct. It was the responsibility that all law enforcement officers have, and she reacted swiftly, forcefully, and commanded the situation. What we don't talk about often, and I think the sheriff simply alluded to it, is what happens after the fact. The passengers here were taken care of. There may have been delays, but people got to their next point because we're focused upon what that mission truly is about. Officer Sleeve took care of the scene. FBI was here as well. I've had conversations with them. They're actively involved in this investigation as well. And as this investigation moves down the course, there will certainly be more information that will be provided to everyone involved. But more importantly, I can't tell you enough about how proud I am of the men and women here at New Orleans International Airport. Thank you so very much for your officers, Mayor, and what they've done. I appreciate it so very much. Officers, the TSA on the line, each and every, I mean, what is important is this uniform is what you see to represent most often the federal government. This is what you see. And because of the work that they do, we all can be safe. It's the confidence that they provide to the traveling public that goes sight unseen. And so I'm so grateful for each and every one of them and the work they do. Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity.
I just want to say that I was very impressed by the performance by our first responders last night. In February, the Chief of Police in Kenner hosted a joint group of an active shooter drill at a school in Kenner. And we got to watch how all the agencies came together, got on the same frequencies, all started working together, and that's clearly what we saw last night. When I got the call at about 8:05 from my emergency operations director, he told me, you better get over to the airport, there's been an incident. By the time I reached the airport access road, and being in Kenner, it didn't take me long, it was already secured. The airport access road from veterans and from the interstate was cut off in airlines, so this perimeter was secured. When we came up to the ramp was of course filled with tons of police vehicles, from the state police to Kenner to Jefferson Parish to the Levee District. So they all responded the way they were supposed to. And I have to commend Iftikhar because he works with our Kenner operations, emergency operations, to make sure we're all on the same page. And that's exactly what happened last night. As the sheriff said, the situation could have been worse, but the first responders were here.
As the mayor indicated, this airport is a microcosm of collaboration and cooperation. It's owned by the city of New Orleans. It's located in Jefferson Parish, and it's within the city of Kenner. As has been said, and I'll be brief, it was cooperation at all levels, local, state, and federal, but certainly kudos to Sheriff Newell and the men and women of the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, and certainly Lieutenant Sleeve, who reacted in a quick, decisive manner, and to the TSA officials. You know, we come through these airports every day. Unfortunately, most days it's you depart, you arrive, you go home, everything's normal, but certainly these officers were trained, and they were trained adequately and correctly, and they reacted and they saved not only serious injury, but probably saved some lives. And again, Sheriff, kudos to your men and women, especially Lieutenant Sleeve. And again, to what happened after the fact in terms of the investigation, which is ongoing, so that we can find out eventually why this happened, and certainly use this as a learning experience to be able to react in additional situations in the future. So again, thank everyone who cooperated, all the first responders, in avoiding what could have been a much more tragic incident. Thank you, John.
Iftikhar, Ahmad, on airport operations.
Yesterday, we had this incident that happened. We coordinate our security with Jefferson Parish Police Department, with St. Charles Parish Police Department, and the Jefferson Levee District. And they did a phenomenal job yesterday, as Sheriff said just now. We have 5,000 folks there, about 28,000 passengers every day. And yesterday, I believe, with the whole team, and we have the best TSA team in the entire nation. And I think that we handled this incident in the best way shape possible, and we're back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right, questions?
Just
a record.
We'll
take one at a time. Go ahead.
Can we hear from the officer, please? I think she's,
Sure.
could someone be nice enough to lower the mic a tad bit for her? Thank you.
Okay. Well, what I have to say is TSA spends a lot of time having us trained. We train, unbeknownst to a lot of people. So we are trained to how to react to different situations. when this all started happening, coming down, it was second nature. You know, we want to make sure that the passengers are safe. So we tell them, run, run. You got to get out of here, run. And with that, we know they're leaving, and we know that we're counting on the Leos. They're the ones there with the weapon to be able to protect us. So I have to say, Officer Sleeve is my hero. She saved my life. The man was within inches of whacking me with a machete, and she did save my life, and saved probably a lot of others, not to mention a lot of
Can you
injuries.
describe what happened? What did you see? How did it unfold?
What I saw originally was one of the officers getting sprayed with the wasp spray. He took a bag and threw it at the guy, which slowed him down enough that when he came through, and I was yelling for everybody to clear the checkpoint, and then we all took off and ran towards where the Leo was, and I was calling run, run for them to get away from him, and I was calling for the Leo, so she was there and alert, and she saved a lot of people's lives. This man was swinging very hard with that machete, and if he would have made contact with anybody, it would have been terrible. And I just feel like our job as TSA is to protect the passengers, and I'm proud to say they were protected.
Did he say anything as he was doing all of this?
I didn't hear him say anything. I looked over my shoulder once I yelled for the checkpoint to be cleared. I looked over my shoulder, and he was coming after me, and I ran as fast as I could, and thank God, you know, the officer was as close as she was, because I wouldn't be here today.
Did you have the through and through, or was that somebody else?
Yeah, I did.
How's your arm?
Oh, it's fine. The bullet went through here and here, and I was fortunate. It went through the tricep, but it didn't hit any tendons. You know, didn't hit the bone. I'll be fine.
Did you realize how close the machete was?
I did. Originally I thought the machete hit me. I didn't realize it was a bullet. I did not realize it was a bullet until I got to the hospital, because I do better not looking at an injury. And so I knew he was close. So I honestly thought he hit me and then she shot him. And once I got to the hospital, I saw the two holes in my shirt. So, and all I could say is, thank God she was there. Like I said, she is my hero. And I also want to thank my TSA family. My screening manager was up there immediately, and when I went to the hospital, he made sure that somebody came there. One of my dear friends was there with me to get me home. Another friend who was in Arkansas got a call from somebody here, and she sent her husband there to the hospital to make sure I was okay. We've had a very tight-knit group and a very, very great group. A lot of support.
I had a chance to talk to quite a few of the officers this morning, and I come to find that Carol is very well respected throughout the workforce here at TSA. And what really provided a great deal of motivation for a lot of the officers is the fact that she's here today and came to see them. And that speaks volumes.
Thank you.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
Well, this is for Sheriff.
Yes.
Sure. You were talking about, can you give us a little bit more of an update over Mr. White's current condition, and whether there were any things in the past, any other episodes that might have at least given an inkling that something like this might happen?
You know, we're going through that process. There's obviously multiple databases at both the federal, state, and local level. Before we release any concrete information relative to that, we want to make sure that we got it right, and it's a fairly common name, and we want to make sure we got the right person. We have received information from the family, and that's why I said there is a mental illness component to this. We don't yet know how severe there is, because as you know, the severity level of mental illness can run the gamut. We don't know whether or not, we haven't been able to determine whether or not there's any recent happenstances that would show any indication of propensity for violence. We've not found any yet. In fact, to the contrary, as I pointed out earlier, most of the people that have interacted with this gentleman in the near past, all very cordial, no issues, no problems. no suspicions, which is not uncommon either. So, you know, this thing will continue to evolve.
And his current condition?
It's critical.
Critical.
Sir, can you go back into the Molotov cocktails and all of the stuff that you found? The way you described it, it almost sounds, for lack of a better term, that if he knew what he was doing, this could have been really ugly.
You know, sometimes the saying, you'd rather be lucky than good, and I think we were both last night to the nth degree. I think we did a lot of things right and positive and caused certain things to happen, but by the same token, 1 second here, 1 second there, it could have been a much different outcome. The fact that he ended up dropping the bag at a point immediately at the time when the TSA agent threw an item at him was, you know, huge in the short 40-second span. I think it was about 40 seconds from beginning to end of this event. Had he been able to hold on to the bag, he might not have continued to chase the TSA agents through the checkpoint. He might have gone somewhere else. All of that's conjecture. We don't know. And we don't really know what his intent was about anything unless or until we can have an opportunity to talk to him.
We'll take one or two more. If he's in critical condition, you haven't been unable to really talk to him, and you say he's refusing for his religious reasons.
They signed some kind of declaration at the hospital that's been signed, I think, previous to this event, and as well as by the family of certain wishes based on their religious beliefs.
So that means he can't take blood and stuff like that.
I'm not sure the breadth and depth of what they allow or not allow.
Just to be clear, the smoke bombs, there were smoke bombs in the car, but there was also residue of smoke bombs.
There were some in the car intact, and near where he landed after being shot, we found some powder residue in a fuse stem. We believe that the powder residue, it's being tested today actually, but we believe, because it's of the same type as the smoke bombs that were in the car, and the fuse is exactly the same.
Great. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.